So what's today, Dr. Scott?
Today is May 29th, 2021. Today is the first day of Mercury retrograde, and it lasts until June 22nd. So don't sign any contracts, and watch what you say and watch what you hear.
Did you bring your Mercury retrograde candle that I got for you to light?
Wow.
Damn
No,
it.
believe me, I've got a month to use it. So.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Couch. Today's episode is titled LA Not So Innocent. Welcome. I'm Dr. Shiloh. I'm here with Dr. Scott. Where are you tuning in from today, Dr. Scott?
I am in lovely Palm Springs at a very dear friend's home he's wonderful and lets me and Dan come and hang out at his place. And it was our really, we realized as we were driving out here, it's the first trip that we've made since last fall, as things have started to open up. And just getting 20 miles outside LA, I just felt like, I'm doing something different. It feels so good.
Yep. Yes, we have our friend Lance from Crawlspace joining us today. He said he's only in his first house. But you just keep the overlordship of Crawlspace Media going, and you're going to have several one day, Lance.
Exactly. And just please keep being a benevolent dictator. We appreciate that.
Yes, we are not worthy. We have a lot to do today.
Yeah.
This is our follow-up to our episode just released this week on conservatorship, psychiatric holds, and of course we covered the Britney Spears saga. And we had a lot more, as always. You guys should see the outline Scott and I have for our episodes. And then we always got to watch the time. And I'm like, well, sounds like this is going on Get Vocal, because we're not going to drag our episodes out to 2 hours anymore. But today we are going to have Lance on to talk about a film that he worked on that couldn't go any better with our topic. And then if we have some time, we're going to talk about a couple of other celebrities that have had to deal with conservatorships. But first, we want to get to some Patreon stuff. We have 2 new Patreon members to announce. We have Amy K and Vivian. So thank you guys so very much. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. And we have our end of the month giveaway for Patreon members. So the giveaway this month is a mug. We're going to send it to you straight from TeePublic. It's a white mug. It has this sort of logo on it, except it's not shiny and hologrammy. But we love this logo. It's so great.
Yeah.
So let me spin the wheel here and see who our winner of the month is. Drum roll. Melissa, and it's Melissa from California. So Melissa, I will be in touch. Congratulations. You get to drink your coffee or tea out of a LA Not So Confidential mug. Congrats. All righty. Anything else, Scott, before we get started? I'm going to open this up for Lance.
Just if anybody is going to be at CrimeCon, please track down Dr. Shiloh. She's going to be there. Unfortunately, I can't make it because I'm going to be back south. But we're already looking forward to next year in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
But Austin is a great city. So if you're there, please look for Dr. Shiloh.
Yes, please look for me. I'm just planning on having a blast. I got a cabana for Sunday afternoon. So Lance, do you want to send over a Crawlspace banner? I'll make it the Crawlspace cabana.
It's on its way. Yeah. Love it. I'll make a note.
Yes. So Rebecca, Sebastian, and I, and Michelle, who's in the chats, we're going to be hanging out at the pool after all the festivities wrap up on Sunday. So please come find us. Hi, Lance. How are you?
What's going on, guy? Shiloh Scott, good to see you. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, so nice to see you on a Saturday. Thanks for joining us. You're wearing a sweater. It must be chilly where you're at, or in your home.
What the hell, man? It's like 48 degrees here and raining. It's pouring. It's 48 degrees.
Not okay.
I had my family over today. They're actually downstairs. We made tacos because I'm obsessed with Mexican cooking now and making my own corn tortillas. So we were eating tacos and I was like, we are grilling. God damn it. We are Oh, stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
I know. I really wanted him to be poolside to like really rub it in our face. But... Well, hey, I'll take tacos. I don't care what the weather is. It's going to make it a better day.
Yeah.
Scott discovered this amazing taco place in downtown LA that is like walking distance for us. And it is incredible. So when you're here, let us know. We'll go on a whole taco tour of LA.
Hey, I am double vaxxed and ready to spread my wings again.
Hey, that is another thing that have we announced our big event here in LA?
We have. But we're doing a walking tour, a downtown LA true crime, sort of haunted, paranormal walking tour that Scott and I were a little afraid of, it might be just he and I going on a little date together. And most of our Patreon members that live locally sold it out. So we have a group of 20 people coming along with us that are listeners. It's going to be so much fun.
If they'll allow us to maybe live broadcast some of it, maybe bits and pieces.
I'm sure they will.
So that they can join us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to start at the top here, talking to Lance specifically, because if you guys remember, there was a couple years ago where I was fully convinced that Tim had Lance locked in his basement because we didn't hear anything from him. He really wasn't showing up anywhere. Tim was very shady on answering questions about your well-being. We were just all very concerned. So are you ready to reveal to the world where you were actually at?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I just, I took a little, I had an opportunity to come my way to work on a movie set, which is something that I've done in the past. And, I just, well, here's the thing. When you
were on a job.
I was on a job. Yeah. And at some point when you do the true crime stuff for so long and you weren't prepared to do it, like mentally in your life at all, it just kind of gets to you. And so I needed to do something, and Tim was gracious enough to be like, yeah, do what you got to do. I needed to do something that was going to consume my time so much where I wasn't going to think about true crime. I wasn't going to think about despair and hurt families and things like that. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, he's been working in the film industry for, I don't know, a dozen years or so. And he said, there's a movie coming into town. Seems like a good project. It's a really good cast that's coming in, a good director. And they need everything. They need non-union, everything. Do you want to work it? And I was like, what do you have that will take up the most time? And he was like, well,
possible.
Yeah, he was like, a driving position. I was like, what does that mean? And he said, well, you're part of the crew that has vans and you drive the cast and crew to and from the set. And what if they need anything, you're just on call and you drive. And I'm like, that is exactly what I want to do. So I arrive at set probably 45 minutes before everybody else, and we leave about an hour and a half after everybody else. It was literally 19 hours a day. And that was what I wanted. Like, it was like this therapeutic flushing of like, there was no choice as to what I was going to think about every single day. And it wasn't boring. Like, I wasn't sitting in a van for like 10 hours. Right. There was always something to do. There was always somebody to pick up. If you raise your hand, they'll keep calling on you. And what ended up happening was I got to meet a lot of really great people, because when they're working on the movie set, they'll get in your van, and that's like almost a safe space. And I learned that really early. You get the director in the van, or the DP or an actor, they get in there, you're now their psychologist for like
you're their therapist. A
20-minute drive. They're like, they'll get in and they'll be like, that shit that just happened today. And I'm like, what happened? And then by the time you're done, they're exchanging phone numbers, like, they're you're like a friend of theirs now. You get their phone numbers in your cell phone, and it just became, I was thinking like this would be a great show, like wiring the van for audio, and it was just like the van stories. And the movie was I Care a Lot with Rosamund Pike and Asa Gonzalez and Peter Dinklage, who I have his phone number. I picked him up. He got helicoptered in, picked him up, drove him. Yeah, it was great. And that was all I thought about. And the script was so different from anything I had ever read. And at first I was like, how is this going to be interesting? Because it was
that's interesting. So you're a driver, and are they like, here, do you want to look at the script? Yep. Because I wouldn't imagine that, you know, they really care if you're into what's happening or not, but that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, the director's assistant, her name was Amelia. She was like, I was talking with her one day, and she was like, have they showed you the script yet? And I was like, no. And she was like, oh, let me ask. And she asked, and she was like, oh yeah, you can check that out. So it was a really open set. And actually one of my coworkers might be popping in tonight.
Have them jump on.
Yeah. That was another thing. Like our little tight van crew was awesome. Like we still keep in touch. There's like the hardest working people, some of the hardest working people I've ever worked with. Just, you know, making things happen, making people happy, and making sure that things got done. And it was just awesome. Like the worker ants, the worker bees.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about film and television and other aspects of entertainment is that most people don't realize that it really is an industry, and that it employs hundreds of thousands of people. It's not just like, you know, one or two actresses making a shitload of money and nothing else happens. It's like, no, it drives the economy. It's huge. It's like, and that's why, like in LA, you know, like it was a sigh of relief to drive to work one morning and go, oh wow, there's 3 filmings happening within a 4 block radius. The economy's coming back. You know, It's like a marker of our economy.
It really is.
A lot of people make their lives off this stuff.
Yeah. Everything. Yeah. I mean, everything from, you know, the labor unions to the caterers to, you know, craft services, all of it. Like there's so much that goes into it. Hundreds, you know, and then on top of like locations.
Craft services is evil. Services should not exist, because you should not have that much amazing food available to you 24 hours a day.
Yep.
I got so fat when I was a driver on a movie shoot in Stockton years ago. And I was just like standing around like, oh, well, another Twinkie won't hurt me. And then like came home 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah. That's what happens, right? And we shot in the middle of the summer, and it was like so hot. And that's what you just go to craft services. I can't tell you the amount of like Poland Spring, like lime flavored water I drank. And you know, it's just like, they're evil, but they're right there, and it's so good. And you know, and they would put out these like the little miniature candy bars, and that's so when you're doing like an overnight shoot. Overnight shoot, 2 a.m, it's like,
sugar spike.
Yeah. I'm pounding a few of the fun size Snickers to get me over the hump.
So for
Shannon,
what'd she say?
Naughty boy drinking water.
I know, right? For people that haven't seen it, we'll probably talk about spoilers, because I just want to talk about like what we thought of the film. But it's called I Care a Lot. It's on Netflix. Lance listed off all the main players in it, including Alicia Witt is in it. Twin Peaks callback, by the way.
Yep.
And the director is Jay Blakeson, right?
Yep, right. Director, yeah.
Yeah. So it ties in. The reason we're talking about it today, because it is about this professional guardian / conservator who, this is her business, this is what she does, but she has it all set up with some other colleagues in the system, including a doctor and people at the care facilities, to basically illegally, but work her way into taking over people's lives and then taking their money, getting paid very lucratively for it. And then the twist is that she ends up doing this to this woman who seems like the perfect victim, because she has no family on paper. She's quite wealthy. And it's just way too easy. And she ends up being a mob boss's mom. And the game is on after that. So just thoughts like about the film. Scott, you didn't watch it, correct? Or did you end up?
I haven't watched it yet, and for a couple of reasons. And this is me revealing my weirdness. There's several movies that I haven't watched because there are aspects to the story that trigger me. Like I haven't watched Get Out because as much as I love horror, I grew up in the South where racial issues are a really big thing. And then and most of my friends have gone, oh no, it's not about that. You should watch it. So maybe I'll be brave enough 5 years after the movie came out to watch it. But this is another one. It's weird how I can talk about true crime. I can talk about awful things, but I get triggered when I think about people taking advantage of elderly people. Mm-hmm. Mainly because I'm about 20 years out from being one of those people. And because it actually is a real thing, and it's happened. It's happened out here in Los Angeles. We had a big case about 10 years ago of a woman who was literally doing exactly what Rosamund Pike's character is doing in the movie. And I mean, it was we have a magazine out here, or we did, it's kind of gone now, but it was a LA Weekly, which was this amazing newsprint magazine that did some of the best investigative journalism that I've ever read. I mean, yep. They would do exposés on people, but not like tabloid type stuff. I mean, really deep dives. And this woman was but it was ugly. She wasn't necessarily paying off people in facilities. She was sending elderly people to the worst, low rent, bottom of the barrel, skilled nursing facilities where they were basically just fed tranquilizers and chained to a bed. It was really horrible. So, but I've heard that this one is not going to trigger me that way. So I'll put that on my calendar to watch in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I think because it does have the twist of her messing with the wrong person to screw over, that's really going to hook you in and sort of take you away from that triggered part. But no, I completely understand. So Lance, I mean, what did you think of the film just overall?
Well, God, the premises were great. Like working on it, and wasn't like any other. I haven't worked on a lot of sets, but I've worked on enough to have an experience, and everyone was super cool. So I was coming in from that, like from Rosamund Pike to Jay Blakeson, and right down to like, well, they fired a couple people, but everybody, the crafty guy, like everybody was super cool. So I came out of that movie with like a good feeling, just like a good feeling of like good people. And Diane Wiest plays the mom, Jennifer Peterson, and she was just amazing. I
love her so much.
I have a funny story about her.
So
but
sweet.
She's like Hollywood royalty at this point. You don't realize how long she's been around. She's been in Woody Allen films. She was in fucking Footloose.
Yeah, I know.
She has been in Bullets Over Broadway.
Lost Boys.
She is. Oh, Lost Boys. Yeah. She's an amazing actress that could literally do any genre. She can do anything.
Okay, I got a quick story about her, if that's
yes,
cool.
Please.
All right, I was in my van. I was parked down away from set, and I was cleaning it up, but I was inside, and I had all the doors shut, and I had the AC on because it was super hot, and I was cleaning everything inside. Somewhere along the lines, I don't know what happened to the keys, but I had accidentally locked myself inside the van with the keys. But it wasn't like I was stuck in the van. I just didn't realize that the doors had locked. Mm-hmm. So I was cleaning up, and I had my little bag of trash that I'm taking out, and I open up the sliding door, and the alarm to the van goes off because it was locked. And I'm like, oh shit! And I'm looking around, and I see the keys, and I grab them, and I hit the alarm. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ! And I slam the door shut, and I slam it shut, and it's like in a movie. Diane Wiest is standing right there at the front of the van, and she's looking at me, and she's going like this. And she's pissed. And she's like, how dare you interrupt this beautiful day with the sound of that car alarm? And I'm like, I'm sorry. It was an accident. I didn't know the van was locked and I was inside. And she goes, I'm kidding. She's like, She's like, calm down, I'm kidding. And she kind of put her hand on my arm and she was like, I'm kidding. She's like, this is a beautiful day. And I was like,
wants Diane Wiest as their mom. Like,
and you know what I said?
That's amazing.
I was like, oh, that's funny. And I laugh and she starts walking away. And I'm like, by the way, you were amazing in Lost Boys. I'm of the movies I picked. Like, she's won an Academy Award for Hannah. Two. And I'm like, you were amazing in Lost Boys. And she kind of gave me a look and she was like, that was a fun one. And then she kept walking off. Like, oh, you're the best.
Well, when you forget that like these iconic actors have a whole breadth of different roles that they play. Years ago, like I performed in what is known as the worst Academy Awards opening dance number ever with Rob Lowe. And there were all these Hollywood royalty, which was really cool. I got to meet Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak and Dorothy Lamour. And Dorothy Lamour was like very famous in the 40s, and she did all the Bob Hope road movies, and she was really a fun actress. And she comes on and does this little thing during the number, and my friend Tony goes, if you give me $5, I'll go tell her I loved her in Creep Show. Because she died a horrible death in the horror movie Creep Show. And I'm like, Tony, you're not going to say that to her. Have some respect.
Oh my gosh.
That's incredible. Love it.
That is.
So I came out of that with like such a good feeling about the way everything worked. Like there was a lot of issues the way anything is, right? But everybody just comes together and they make it work. And it was a good feeling. So when I watched the movie, I was so blown away by how awful people are in that movie. Like it blew my mind because there's no one in that movie that's likable. There's the movie at the end of the day, when you watch that movie, you're like, the most likable person is probably the guy, Macon Blair, the actor Macon Blair, the one who he gets spit in the face. The one at the end, he was the one who.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he's probably
at the end, yeah,
he's probably the most likable guy in the movie, and even saying that is like,
right.
He's not that likable. Like,
true. That's hard to make a movie with a bunch of unlikable people doing
every single
things.
Character.
Yeah, and Rosamund Pike scares me.
Oh yeah.
And Gone Girl. I mean, and I've seen her play lovely, sympathetic characters, but when she turns on the sociopath eyes,
oof.
You guys, that's what it's like when you're talking to somebody that has ASPD. I swear to God.
Yeah, I still want her entire wardrobe from that film, though. Give me that. It's very like what I aspire to look like when I go to work. Like what was her name in Blair Underwood in House of Cards? Like ice cold woman, but the most badass wardrobe ever. It's my dream.
Yeah.
But,
and right, I think Tim's here. He said Diane Wiest was likable, but then like I mean she was likable in the sense where she was the anti-hero version or she was the counter to Rosamund Pike's character. Like you,
sure.
But oh my goodness, the scene with Rosamund Pike's what was her name? I'm trying to remember. Oh, Marla. The character's name was Marla. Mm-hmm. When the car goes in the water and she comes out of the water, like Rosamund Pike actually went in the water. Like she was in the water. She did that take 100 times, and that scream that she did right there, that was in these quarries in Rockport, Massachusetts, and it was I don't know 11 o'clock at night or something, midnight. And that scream happened like half a dozen times. Like you could hear it. It was like bouncing off of everything. It was amazing. It was such an amazing moment.
All the characters are pretty great. And for as awful as they are, there is like this little piece. And this is what I think the brilliance of the film is, like something charming, like the lawyer, right? The lawyer for Peter Dinklage's character.
Chris something.
I don't know, but he's like, he plays it perfectly. And then with Rosamund Pike, I mean, with her tenacity, she's a complete psychopath, but you're like, shit, I got to give her some credit by like, 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
it's very interesting, the relationship that it sort of takes you on this journey with the different characters, which is what I really liked about it.
I loved how she was a self-described lioness, and she
Oh,
was
yeah.
just, and even like her wardrobe, her haircut, like everything was like an arrow, you know, like it was very, very direct. There was so much that was shot that wasn't in there though, and so much in the script that wasn't in there, like the relationship with her and
Frankie.
Fran.
Yeah.
Isa Gonzalez's character. They had more in the script that frankly I thought should have been in the movie. I thought like there was a lot of the movie I felt was kind of rushed. I feel like the post-production, I think they got the deal at Netflix and then they were like, shit, we got to get this out there. And because it felt like the story was super rushed.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good movie, but
it's a lot.
It just felt super rushed.
Yeah, it's very and this is going to probably sound weird, and I'm not like a movie aficionado or know what I'm talking about. I just know what I like. But the way that it was shot almost reminded me of like a Wes Anderson film where like there's some very symmetrical things and then kind of like the slow mo like pieces. It was beautiful. You know, it was just, everything was really nice to look at, which is cool in a movie where everyone is such a terrible person. There's this juxtaposition there, but
yeah.
I think so. Actually, one of our listeners, and Abby, she's here tonight. She sent me an article. Netflix has a series, I guess, called Dirty Money. I've never watched it, but there's an episode, I guess, on guardianship scams, and it sounds like they highlight this woman that, I mean, could have been the inspiration. I don't know if it was, but do you know where this concept came from at all? Do you have any insight into that?
No, because I met Jay Blakeman before I read the script, and I knew what it was about, but I really didn't have the opportunity to ask anybody like where the idea came from. And then I read the script, and it struck me as like, honestly, like it kind of struck me as like almost like an Aaron Brockovich type movie. Like that, I was like, is that kind of what it's about? Like a courtroom drama? Because there was a lot of courtroom scenes in the script, and the way it translated on screen, it seemed very secondary. But in the script, like reading the script, it almost felt like courtroom heavy. So I was thinking, okay, this is sort of like an Aaron Brockovich type movie. So it just took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around it, and I didn't know that it was so much of a thing, like that concept. I didn't know that scam was so prevalent because it's never talked about.
Well, I mean, you got to think of it like this. It's like any kind of new technology is developed, what is the first thing it's used for? Usually porn, right? Like photography. But if there is a way to make money off anything at the, then somebody will find a way to do it. And which I think that is staggering to me that there are people like, even though I work in this milieu and I work with these types of clients, like, oh, they have found another way to make money, especially when it's a stream of like people that have, I do know that the setup in the movie is that she targets people that she knows have a lot of money and they have money coming in. So the investment is keeping them alive long enough so that you like all the money keep coming in. But, the sad thing is that there are so many people that fall between the cracks that are elderly with maybe dementia or Alzheimer's dementia, or people who are otherwise disabled that really need those services, but they fall between the cracks. And it gets to be this very gray area about, well, at what point are you really going to take someone's rights away from them? And then where are they going to go? Like, is it better for them to be puttering around in a slightly dirty house versus put them in a government funded skilled nursing facility where their life expectancy is going to go down like by a decade easily because of the infection rates? And it's a really hard call.
Yeah. Scott, do you know we had this question after our episode came out on one of our social media platforms, but someone wanted to know the difference between guardianship and conservatorship.
Right. Okay. So if you get guardianship, and it's also a mistake that a lot of people think, like I'll be working with maybe a client and the family will say, okay, we got it. We got guardianship. And so now we can make them do this and we can make them take their medications and we can make it. And I have to say, no, that's not, you don't have that at all. You as the family, as guardians, basically can make legal decisions for this person, but you can't make them do anything. You're basically still in the same position that you were before. But a conservatorship you can be a conservatorship in a locked facility or a non-locked facility. So a conservatorship gives you a lot more leeway to do things, but you don't have any teeth. You still can't take someone by the arm and yank them to the doctor's office. You can't lock somebody in their room, even if you have conservatorship. I mean, it does happen. It's not supposed to happen, but it's, you're supposed to be able to use your skills to contain a person. That's why for the people who really need it and are on like years-long conservatorships and locked facilities, because those people, their impulse control, whether it's like due to severe mental illness or drug-induced mental illness, like they literally can't take care of themselves, or they might be harming others. Like one person would say, oh, well, what harm is she, her thing is that she has a psychotic break and she runs into traffic. And I said, well, it's not just her. This woman's running into traffic. How many people could die as a result of the car pileup from someone swerving to avoid?
Right.
But people just don't think about those things sometimes. So conservatorship is generally talking about in a locked facility, and guardianship is more like for someone who can maybe get by on their own or live in a group home or a board and care or a family situation.
Got it.
Good.
And then Mojo Susan has a good example. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
My parents' neighbor is in prison for the largest fraud of elderly people in the movie.
Wow.
Well, thank God they caught them. I'm
Yeah.
glad they caught them.
Yeah.
Jeez, I know. So was all the filming done in Boston or in the Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Awesome,
It was Boston and some surrounding towns like Weston and Woburn, Rockport. I think they did some stuff over because Jay Blakeman is from the UK, so I think they had to shoot some sort of like B-roll stuff over there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'd say 95% of it was shot right around Boston.
Is this supposed to take place in Cleveland, right?
No, it takes place in Boston.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yep.
I don't know why I got that.
I don't know if they specifically say Boston, but they feature Boston, all like shots of the city and all of that. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get to go to a rap party or anything fun like that?
Yeah, we had a rap party. And I was actually featured in the they cut together like a little trailer. Yeah. And I was the only crew member that I was featured in like the crew, like the rap party trailer.
Yeah, because you're everyone's therapist now. They're like, put that guy in there.
Well, I ended up being a driver. Not a driver. I ended up being well, it was what's the person who handles all of like the car rentals and the car like what's that called? So there's a position where one person handles all of the car rentals. If you need a taxi cab there. No, it's not transportation. It's like prop cars. Like the prop car guy. Yeah, I think it's literally called the prop car guy. So that guy ended up being in a scene previously, like on a week or so before, and he was featured in a scene as a cab driver, and then they needed to bring him back because he was like giving them shit about it or something. So they're like, fine, you can be the cab driver in the scene when the apartment blows up, but you need to find a replacement for yourself for the prop cars. And he was like, oh, well, Lance can do it. So they made me like the prop car guy. So I don't even know why I'm telling this story. I don't even remember what the question is.
Prop party trailer. You were.
Oh, right. So I ended up there's the scene where she where Marla pulls Fran out of the apartment. They get into the SUV,
mm-hmm.
and the SUV drives away. There was a shot of which wasn't in the movie, but there was a shot of the SUV driving away with Eiza Gonzalez in the passenger seat. I was driving that. I was driving it. But what they used in the trailer was her like leaning against the window, and she's all like battered and bloody and everything. And I'm like waiting to drive, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at her like, and I remember looking at her like, damn, the makeup is really good. Like she looks like she's in real like character. And that's like a little like sliver and it just looks like I'm so concerned about her, like, and she's all like beat up and shit.
But you're really just like, damn.
Yeah.
Makeup person a raise.
Yeah. It was a fun little moment, and I do consider Eiza Gonzalez to be my friend because she helped me out because I smashed my head on set. Did I ever tell this story?
No.
Smashed my head on set. It was like a week before we wrapped.
That explains a lot.
We were in Boston, and the guy who was my boss decided to take another job on another movie in New York. So literally one night he was like, "Hey, you're going to be the head of this department now." And I'm like, "What? I don't know how to do that. Like, I've never done that. Like, come on." And he was like, "No, it's super easy." So it was pouring outside when he told me that. He was showing me all the paperwork, and he was getting text messages from other crew members who were at a bar. And they were like, "Come to this bar and we're going to buy you drinks before you drive to New York tonight." So,
okay.
So he was like, "Listen, do you want to go hang out at the bar and we can go over this in the bar?" And I'm like, "No, it's like 11:30 at night. I got to be back here at like 5:30 and to take your job. So I'd rather we sit here and talk about this." And he was like, "No, you'll get it. Here's all the paperwork. I'm going to go hang out with everybody else." I had no idea what I was doing. Super stressful day, like super hot. And we're in Boston, and they're shooting at this restaurant. And the only scene they used from this, by the way, was when Peter Dinklage is looking at the pastries in the there's just one shot where he's looking at pastries. That's the only shot they used. So we're right on Tremont Street, which is super busy, and like it clicked. Everything started clicking for me, and I'm like, okay, I got it. All the vans are lining up. I'm managing everything. I'm on the walkie. You know, I got my friend Mike, who is like my right-hand man. The whole van crew was awesome, and they're navigating through Boston, and I got them all lined up, and we're ready to transport everybody out of there. And one of my vans behind me was trying to get the makeup kit into the back of the van, but the seats were right there and they couldn't fit it in. So we were trying to figure out how to put the seats down. So I was like, okay, let me get out and help you out. So I get out, I go around to the back, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I see the little latch on the top of the seat. So I take the headrest on the seat and I grab the top of the van and I launch myself up to get into the van. And I'm moving fast because there's like no time to waste. The traffic's coming down and we're like double parked. I launch myself up, and for some goddamn reason, the connection between the door and the top of the van, like where it clicks in, it's a spike like that.
Oh,
What?
I put my fucking head right into that, like as hard as I possibly could.
Because you're pulling your entire body up.
I pulled myself up I put my foot on the tailgate, hand here, and I launched my head right into it. And I went down, and I was like, fuck. And I remember looking at my hands, and there was a little blood, and I'm like, I'm bleeding, and then it just poured out.
Nothing bleeds
and
like the head.
Pouring out. And I can hear on the walkie, they're like, Lance is done. He's out. And I'm like I'm going like this because I'm trying to not have the blood like hit my face.
Yeah.
And so they bring me into the restaurant that they were shooting in, and there's just blood pouring out. And the medic comes up, and he was like, Jesus. He's like, that's a gash. And he's like tapping my head, like trying to like clean me up. And I'm sitting there, and someone comes up, and they're like, here, you need water. And they give me water, a bottle of water. And then she comes back, and she has a stack of napkins, and she was like, just, cleaning and putting them on my head. And it's Eiza Gonzalez.
What?
And I was, and she was like, I've been injured on set before. And she talked to me the entire time I was there because she wanted to keep me alert. She was like, do you feel like you're going to pass out? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, well, you're losing blood here. And so she talked to me the entire time and like walked me, like talked me through everything. And she didn't leave my side until I was going into a car to get to like go get stitches or staples.
So she basically saved your life.
She basically saved
She's
my life.
Hero. She's an American hero.
She's a friggin' American hero. And then I think I took that was on a Friday, so I went back on Monday. And after she saw me on Monday, she had all of her makeup on. She like her shirt was all bloody from like the beating she took in the movie. And she made a joke about how like she was like, look, I stole your shirt from the day you hurt your head. And I was like, oh, that's my shirt. But I do even though we haven't spoken since, I do consider her a good person and a friend. Like she didn't have to do that. Like she went out of her way to come over and like talk, and you know, maybe she did it just so someone could tell a story about how cool she is, but I was impressed.
On some random Get Vocal 2 years later.
Yeah. Right.
Well, you should have invited her tonight. She could have given like her side of it.
I tried. It's Memorial Day weekend.
Did you tell them that you run a very prestigious podcast network and get them to tweet out? I mean, they should be tweeting out all of our shows, right?
No, I forgot.
You didn't wear a big Crawlspace shirt while you were there the whole time?
Yeah. No, but a lot of people did end up tuning into a lot of the shows because I definitely used the opportunity to talk about everything that we do. Yeah.
You just conveniently had it on in the van every time they got in. They're like, wow, I'm really hooked on this now. What is it?
That's funny. Shannon said tapping your head. That sounds counterproductive. I guess she wasn't tapping. She wasn't really tapping. It was
patting with
patting. Yeah.
Wow, how fun! Did your friend ever show up tonight? If he was here, I wanted to.
I don't know.
If he had anything else to chat about, but that's a cool experience. I mean, I kind of wanted to touch on this in the front, but then we went into it. But I love that you were like, I need to get away and do something else, just to have a palate cleanser. I mean, good for you for one, recognizing it and then actually doing something about it. And that can be hard to do. I mean, of course you have had Tim's support, but that can be hard to sort of walk away from for a while.
Oh, it was super hard. It was super hard, but I couldn't see not doing it. Like I couldn't see, I was like literally feeling everything I was feeling. I'm that like, you know, that's not me. Like, that's not what I was losing my sense of humor. I was like stressed, like it just wasn't me, and I could feel like that breaking away.
It also makes sense. It's not just that we deal with some pretty challenging subject matter at times. It's also 18 months of this extraordinary event of COVID and quarantine and the world re-examining itself. I mean, this hasn't happened since 1912, you know, to this extent. And it's been a drag on the economy. And, you know, you, and I'm using the royal you, all of us, we can all think, hey, I'm coping good. I'm in my daily workout routine and I'm masked up and I'm being responsible. And you're still going to be at the effect of what's going on around you. So yeah, I'm glad this is what you did was self-care. I think that was really important. That was self-care in that moment to make that decision.
Yeah. And you know what, like I checked in and I was still like, present, you know, behind the scenes a little bit, but it made coming back even like better, because once the shoot was wrapping, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm ready to come back. And in a weird way, it was like this therapeutic vacation.
Yeah.
It was like a recharge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, right now is a very interesting time. I mean, this was pre-pandemic and all of that. And I think we need to each keep an eye on our stress and know when we're at that limit, hopefully doing some preventative work too, to like manage it as best we can. But, you know, specifically to what you were talking about of the type of work that you were just doing day in and day out is something that Scott and I are really, you know, interested and passionate about for true crime content creators and consumers. When does it cross the line into getting to us to where it becomes vicarious trauma, or we're just not ourselves anymore? Like you said, losing your sense of humor, you know, feeling
irritable.
yeah, like cynical. Cynicism is something we see in like a lot of first responders when we talk about vicarious trauma. And we might be doing that to ourselves a little bit as creators and consumers. So Scott and I have been sitting on this for a while to do a project, like a research project about that. And this is the year that we want to actually put that into motion. But I think it's a very interesting thing for us to start thinking about our own wellness in this space.
Yeah. Right. Like think about how crazy it is that this happened. I think one of the problems with the pandemic is that we all didn't know like when it was going to end. And when it first started, it was like, okay, well, you know, I can't wait till the summer because that's probably when things are going to start opening up and it's going to be a few months. But, you know, no. And then it was like, okay, it's not a few months. Now it's a few more months. And now it's the holidays. And now it's into the new year. And now, but over the course of that time, we all figured out how to adapt to it. And we all became dependent on Zoom and like even like Get Vocal in this virtual world. So now we got unplugged from the real world and plugged into the virtual world. And now we need to unplug from the virtual world because we're getting back into the real world. And it's really tough to make those shifts, even though it feels like it's not. It feels like, you know, seeing people with masks was so unnatural for about a week. And then it became supernatural. And not supernatural. Now, you know what I'm saying? I mean, then it became very natural. Yeah. And then seeing like now Massachusetts today is the first day that they lifted the mask mandate in certain situations. Like I could go to the store right now and not wear a mask. I did, but I wore a mask because I don't know how to not wear a mask anymore.
Right.
Because
I would also add you're being responsible.
It is a bit of
doing that.
Yeah,
because
it is.
Because we're not at the end. You know, there are still large portions of the population that are not vaccinated or refuse to get vaccinated. And I mean, I'm sorry to sound paranoid, but I think it's somewhat of a functional paranoia. There are variants in India that are frightening. And, you know, if one of them comes here, I think building on what you're saying, we're all trying to adjust back to normal when normal's not going to come back to the way it was before. It can't, you know, if you want to preserve your life, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? Like everyone was like, well, when are we going back to normal? But how do you know that was even normal? Like, come on.
What is normal? The new normal.
The world
now?
has been around for so long. And how long have we been here? It's like a sliver of time that we've been here. We know normal because we're just told like, okay, this is just what I've done in 50 years, you know, like 50 years, 60 years, there hasn't been anything different. So I guess that's normal, but normal is not normal. There's no normal. It's always, it's entropy. It's always chaos. And we're just in it. We're just in this chaos. But we're told like, this is where like the PTSD comes in because we're told it's all good. It's always all good.
Right.
Like it's normal. Like,
and
no,
I think that we're neurologically, we're also wired to try and make sense of it. You know, we're trying, and sometimes it just becomes overwhelming in this very, very fast-paced world, you know, which actually leads to like back around to the subject of this particular episode of conservatorship. When we talk about some of the celebrities that have been conserved, I think it's jarring to the public to see this kind of thing happen when you've seen someone be so highly functioning and now suddenly they're not. And like one of the examples that we were going to talk about is Amanda Bynes. You know, Amanda Bynes was a child star, very successful, very talented, like great comic timing, a lot of talent. You know, if anybody saw her in Hairspray, she like took a small role in Hairspray. She's freaking hysterical, but she hit that age. And unfortunately, it trips women up because women can have psychotic and bipolar breaks later in the lifespan than men do. Instead of it always hitting in the teens like most men, it can hit in the late 20s. But the day-to-day stressors of modern life, one of the things when I teach about is that the amount of stress that the average teenager experiences in America today is what used to put people into institutions in the 50s. You know, we just keep boiling the frog. We just keep turning up the heat. And then we wonder like, well, why am I so fucking irritable all the time?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And like, you know, you're talking the Free Britney, I don't like, situation.
Movement.
Right. Yeah, and it reminds me of Amy Winehouse too. Only at least Britney is still alive. Like Amy Winehouse is the same way, and just
We just
used and
watched it
used and
happen.
used.
Yeah.
And you watch it and you live vicariously through them, and you want to see them. You want to see the collapse. You want to see the rise, and you want to see the collapse. And where does that come from? Right, Elvis
It's
too.
awful.
Yeah,
It's awful. I mean, the way that we like build up these young celebrities, and they are everything. You can't get enough of them. But you're right. We are just as tuned in when they're falling, and it's awful. I mean, what we do to them over and over, and it's like this is a tale old as time, right? Like the early celebrity, and that's why Scott and I said in our episode, like, it would be so nice if there was just some sort of like mental health intervention that's happening with celebrities if they're young, so it's the norm, so they're healthy, so they have self-care, so they know, like, hey, time out, I need to go do something different for a while.
It feels like there's like it feels like there's two paths for them, right? It's like the Amy Winehouse or River Phoenix path, where you're self-destruct and die, or you go through all of it, like Robert Downey Jr., right? He was I don't know if he was like a child star, but you know, he went through all of that, but he came out the other side, and he was like, he was an addict, and he's not anymore. But you know, you also have millions of dollars to sink into rehab and
well, that's a really interesting example, because, and I wish I knew where to cite this from, but I think this is fascinating. Robert Downey Jr. hired his own handler. Like, he had enough insight into his own addictions and his own challenges that he hired a full salary person to be with him 24 hours a day to help. It's like a recovery buddy. You know, it's almost like he put himself in a guardianship or conservatorship, which is very cool. I mean, I actually really admire him, given what because when I worked in the Department of Corrections for state of California, my first yard that I worked on was the yard that he was on when he was there, and he was legendary. Like, all the custody was like, wow, what a nice guy. He really worked his program, kept his nose clean, didn't get into any shit. He was a model inmate.
Kept his nose clean.
Yeah.
You know, who is the talk show host? Craig Ferguson. When he, remember that back when
he was the only one, right?
The only one when Britney smashed the car with was it with golf clubs and shaved her head.
Umbrella.
Everyone was the umbrella, yeah. And everyone else was making fun of her, like Leno and Letterman and that whole like everybody. And Craig Ferguson was like, "This is someone with a problem, and I'm not making fun of her."
Good.
And no one he was that. That's like that if that happened, that's so common today, right? Like, people are very aware of that today. And back then, though, when was that? Like the early 2000s?
2007.
Okay, 2007. Yeah. He was the only one who had like that sort of awareness, because he'd been through it, and he was like, this is somebody this is someone who's has something, if it's addiction, if it's a mental illness, like we shouldn't be using it for these baseline opening monologue jokes.
It's like their community property. Like, everyone thinks that they just have the right to, it's out there and it's mine.
Right. I mean, that's very interesting, because that's a great point about how we have this parasocial. We believe we have this parasocial relationship with our favorite celebrities, either the ones that we like or the ones that we don't like. And we can be very unfair. And one of the first people that I thought had such an interesting take on it was Dionne Warwick. And Dionne Warwick, who's been around forever, is like an amazingly talented musician, singer. And she has lived a life, as a person of color, a woman in the music industry. She has been through it, and she's got quite a reputation as a diva. And somebody was like, during an interview, was talking about like, well, you owe your fans, and don't you owe the public? And she like put her finger up and she goes, I owe no one anything except when I am on stage and people have paid to see me perform. I don't owe any. And I just thought, I mean, it was like, that was jarring. This was many years ago when I heard it, and I thought, fuck yeah, that's a really healthy attitude. Yeah. And look, I did want to say also, I want to bring this up because Melissa Garcia over on Facebook is saying, Haley Joel Osment never got into too much trouble as far as I know. It's like every now and then there's a well-rounded one, but they really seem the odd ones out. I think, Melissa, you have a really good point in that we don't hear about the ones that just have normal lives. What we see is the ones that are going through hard times because paparazzi make their money off basically bleeding someone dry and in those kind of situations. And it's all about, sometimes it's about parenting, sometimes it's about family dynamics, and sometimes it's about mental illness. And none of us gets away from mental illness. You're not getting out of this life without a diagnosis at some point. You're going to lose somebody that you love, so you're going to grieve, and grieving is a transitory mental illness. So we should all work to have a little more empathy and compassion for people who are in these places. And I'm glad you brought that example up because about Craig Ferguson, because I remember at that time watching Britney meltdown, going, oh God, another celebrity. Yeah. My mind was not in that place. And then that was right as I was really beginning my mental health career and my education. And you suddenly realize, like, oh, there's a whole marginalized population in our world that's the victim of this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man, don't even get started on the Coreys back in the day. We're not. It's 7:57. You have 3 more minutes, so we're not going to get started.
Bring it back to the Lost Boys.
You know what?
I'm going to bring it back to the Lost Boys.
We're going to put that on the list for
Please
an episode.
do.
I think the Coreys is a really great one. I mean, it's sad as hell. Oh my gosh, so sad.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a whole cans of worm there with the addiction issues, but also, this sexual abuse of boys ring in Hollywood, in a very good documentary called The Open Secret.
Yeah.
That is just mind blowing. So
yeah, hard to watch other movies after watching that documentary.
It certainly is. Is.
Well, even going back to, that is awful. Now we have to also realize that it's been going on for a very long time. I mean, Judy Garland as a child was
just thinking of Judy Garland.
She was forced to take amphetamines and smoke 30 cigarettes a day in order to stay thin enough to play Dorothy and all the other roles. And then she'd have to take a major, like tranquilizer at night to be able to go to sleep. Right. We've been doing this to performers for a long time.
Certainly. Well, Lance, thank you so much for taking away time from your family and joining us.
Oh yeah, no, they're annoying. So I'm just kidding.
Little bit of respite. No.
No.
It's Memorial Day weekend, and we thank you for your time and hanging out with us. It's so much fun.
Thank you. What a good conversation. I'm sorry if we got a little off track with the end of it, but it's such a good conversation. I love this.
Always. We have we go off on deep topics, whether we're on your show or vice versa, and we get into what we didn't even plan ever.
I know. The topic that you approached me with, I was like, yeah, cool. We'll talk about I Care a Lot, but I knew somewhere subconsciously, I'm like, well, we'll probably hit on some other things here.
Oh yeah.
But we didn't talk about Twin Peaks, which is fine.
I mean, we had a little mention, and that's
there was a you're right, there was. Okay, I feel better.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Happy long holiday if you're here in the States. Be safe. Hopefully I'll see some of you at CrimeCon next week, and then Scott and I are recording, so we'll get an episode out the week after CrimeCon. We're working on something actually really fun for that, a little sort of, I don't want to say interactive, but kind of a play along episode, if you will. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.